They never announce it. They never write it down. They never even speak it aloud, not to their closest friends, not even to themselves in clear language. And yet every man has felt it, the cold and silent gaze of judgment that radiates from a woman when she is measuring his worth. It happens in silence, in stillness, in the moments where no words are exchanged, but everything is decided. The ordinary man thinks this is about beauty, charm, or luck. But Machiavelli knew better. He understood that power is never given freely. It is tested, provoked, and extracted through subtle games that disguise themselves as chance encounters. What if I told you that behind the surface of every flirtation, every conversation, every touch of female attention, there exists a test? Not one announced, not one declared, but hidden a test that defines whether a man is to be trusted, desired, followed, or dismissed. If you miss it, you are erased. If you pass it, you ascend. The thesis is this: women judge men not through what is spoken, but through their silent tests of sovereignty. And it is only the man who recognizes and masters these invisible judgments who claims the mantle of respect, desire, and power. The ancient Florentine strategist would tell you this without hesitation. People do not reveal their true intentions openly. They cloak them in appearances, in performance, in theater. For Machiavelli, life was a battlefield of perception, and to survive it, one must never take words at face value. Women, far more than men, embody this principle in their instincts. They never simply listen to what a man says. They watch whether his spirit cracks under pressure, whether his confidence trembles when confronted, whether his essence bends when it is silently challenged. That is the hidden test, and this is not cruelty. It is necessity, because a woman cannot entrust her loyalty, her body, her future, to a man who collapses in silence. She needs evidence. And so she tests, without announcing it, without warning, without mercy. Imagine the scene. You are speaking with a woman who seems warm, engaged, almost fascinated. Then suddenly she withdraws. Not physically, not with words, but with a subtle change in her gaze, a microshift in her energy. The warmth vanishes, replaced by a distant coolness. She falls silent. This is not accident. This is the test. The ordinary man panics. He rushes to fill the silence, to explain himself, to joke nervously, to scramble for approval. He thinks he has lost her, and so he tries to buy back her attention with words, compliments, concessions. But in doing so, he fails. For in that moment, she was not withdrawing from him, she was probing him. She wanted to see if his presence could withstand emptiness, if his self-assurance was strong enough to exist without validation. The collapse exposes him, and once she has seen it, the judgment is final. Now consider the opposite response. The man who does not flinch. The man who treats her silence not as a void to be filled, but as a stage to be claimed. He holds his ground. He does not fidget. He does not rush. He does not plead. His stillness radiates certainty. His gaze remains steady, his breathing calm, his body language relaxed yet unyielding. He does not chase, because he does not need to. In that silent arena, he communicates the most powerful truth a man can ever embody. I am enough as I am. I require nothing from you to be complete. And in that instant, the hidden test is passed. The woman feels the weight of his sovereignty. She may not even consciously know why, but she feels it. She feels safe. She feels drawn. She feels the gravitational pull of a man who does not collapse under silence. The shift is not small. It is seismic. For once a man understands that women test in silence, once he sees that the judgments are not in the words, but in the moments between them, his entire perception of interaction transforms. He no longer seeks approval in speech. He asserts presence in stillness. He no longer confuses compliance with attraction. He recognizes that strength is proven in resistance. The hidden test is passed not through charm, not through cleverness, but through sovereignty, through the refusal to betray one's center in the face of silent scrutiny. And once you understand this, you cannot return to ignorance. You see it everywhere, in every glance, in every pause, in every shift of energy. The battlefield is revealed, and you are either the man who collapses or the man who conquers. This is the first revelation. Women test silently because power cannot be negotiated in words. It must be felt. It must be demonstrated without explanation. Machiavelli would remind you that people are not bound by what they say, but by what they show under pressure. A prince cannot afford to plead with his subjects for loyalty. He must embody such power that loyalty is inevitable. The same is true in love, in desire, in respect. A man cannot talk his way into passing the hidden test. He must reveal it in silence. But what happens when the stakes rise higher? What happens when the silence grows heavier, the test more dangerous, the challenge more profound? Because the first test is only the beginning. And the truth is, each woman you encounter carries within her not one, but a sequence of escalating tests designed to strip away the illusions and expose the core of who you are. The next layer is darker, sharper, and far less forgiving. Are you ready to face it? Picture this. You are no longer in the playful silence of a first encounter. You are deeper now, perhaps weeks into knowing her, perhaps even months. The warmth has been established, the rhythm of conversation is flowing, and you believe the bond is secure. But suddenly, unpredictably, she introduces friction. Not in the form of an argument, not through direct confrontation, but through subtle contradiction. She disagrees for no clear reason. She withholds approval where she once gave it freely. She introduces tension where comfort had reigned. The ordinary man thinks he is losing her. He believes he must fix it, smooth it over, eliminate the conflict before it grows. And so he compromises, appeases, bends his will to maintain harmony. But this is the trap. For in her eyes, the moment he abandons his stance to maintain comfort, he reveals that his center was an illusion. The test is not about harmony. The test is about strength. The hidden dynamic is that women instinctively know that life will throw storms, obstacles, enemies, and betrayals. They know that beauty fades, fortunes collapse, families fracture. And in the secret chambers of their psychology, they are searching for the one truth that matters. Will this man remain unshaken when the world turns against him? They cannot trust the answer he gives in words. They must see it in action. And so, they create small storms of their own. They manufacture friction. They challenge for no reason. They withhold warmth to see if his fire can generate its own heat. The common man fails here because he interprets friction as rejection. He panics, retreats, or grovels. He thinks the relationship is in danger, when in truth, the relationship is being forged. The man who understands responds differently. He does not collapse into apology or rush into appeasement. He does not interpret her challenge as hostility, but as opportunity. He holds his ground, not cruelly, but calmly. He listens, but does not bend for the sake of comfort. He remains firm in his vision, unwavering in his standards. He does not fear her withdrawal, because he knows his value is not dependent on her immediate approval. In that moment, the power response is revealed, strength cloaked in calm. He does not fight her, but he does not yield either. And the paradox is that she feels safer in his resistance than she ever could in his compliance. For his sovereignty proves he can weather storms, and if he can endure hers, he can endure the world's. The perception shift here is profound. The man realizes that conflict is not a threat to desire, but a crucible of it. He understands that women do not test to destroy, but to discover. Every challenge, every contradiction, every withdrawal is not a punishment, but an invitation to prove his essence. What once felt like sabotage now feels like sacred initiation. And this shift transforms the way he sees women entirely. No longer are their moods, silences, and contradictions sources of confusion. They are the very theater where sovereignty is measured and crowned. Narrative checkpoint. Here's the brutal truth. So far, every interaction with a woman is an audition for your sovereignty. You are either proving that you collapse when warmth is withdrawn, or you are proving that you remain unshaken. And this leads us to the next question, the one that cuts deeper. What happens when her test is not subtle, but public? What happens when the silent gaze becomes a stage, and the judgment is rendered before the eyes of others? This is the escalation that defines whether you are merely confident in private or sovereign in the arena of the world. Now the battlefield changes. It is no longer her gaze alone that weighs you, but the gaze of the room, the audience, the collective. You are with her among friends in a social circle or in a public setting, and suddenly the hidden test emerges in a form most men fear. She teases you in front of others, questions you, challenges your authority in a way that is subtle enough to seem playful, yet sharp enough to carry risk. This is not cruelty. It is the public crucible. She wants to see not only if you can hold yourself in silence or in private tension, but whether you can stand unbroken when all eyes are on you. The hidden dynamic here is exposure. Women instinctively know that a man who crumbles under the scrutiny of the crowd will never withstand the pressures of leadership, conflict, or responsibility. Just as Machiavelli wrote that a ruler must maintain appearances before the people, a man must project sovereignty in the arena of social judgment. The test is never truly about the details of her comment. It is about the eyes that witness your response. And here is where the majority fail. The common response is defensiveness. The ordinary man hears her teasing or questioning as an attack, and he reacts with irritation, protest, or awkward justification. He tries to explain himself, to claw back dignity through logic or overreaction. But the more he scrambles, the more the audience sees weakness. The laughter is no longer with him, but at him. And in her silent heart, she registers the collapse. This is not a man who can hold the throne when challenged in the court of perception. This is a man who bleeds dignity when put under pressure. The power response could not be more different. The sovereign man absorbs the jab without flinch, without tremor. He smiles, not in apology, but in amusement. He understands that the test is not about the literal words, but about the weight of presence. Instead of defending, he redirects. Instead of shrinking, he expands. He responds with humor if it suits him, silence if it is sharper, or a playful retort that restores balance without malice. The crucial point is that he is unshaken. His aura does not contract, it expands. In that instant, the room feels his dominance, not because he conquered her, but because he mastered himself. The perception shift here is a revelation. You begin to see that public tests are not traps to fear, but theaters to claim. What once felt like humiliation now feels like coronation, because the hidden test is not designed to strip you of power, but to reveal whether you already possess it. The woman, consciously or not, is asking one question in front of others. Will you bleed or will you reign? And when you pass this test, the attraction deepens beyond words. She knows she is beside a man who does not shrink in the arena, and the audience senses it too. Respect multiplies. Desire sharpens. Narrative checkpoint. Here is where the stakes climb higher. Passing the silent test in private is power. Passing the public test in front of others is sovereignty. But there is a test still more dangerous, still more invisible, because it hides not in silence or in teasing, but in her most intimate vulnerability. What happens when the test is woven not into her gaze, not into her challenge, but into the deepest corners of her trust? That is the realm where men are crowned or condemned forever. Are you ready to see it? This is where the game leaves the theater of words, silences, and audiences, and enters the chamber of intimacy itself. The stakes are now existential, because what she is about to test is not just your composure or your charisma. It is the core of your masculinity, your ability to carry weight that she cannot. This test is invisible to the careless man, yet devastating to the unprepared. It is the moment when she shows you her fragility, her fear, her chaos. She does not announce it as a test. She does not say, "I am about to see what you are made of." Instead, it arrives as a sudden storm in her soul, tears without reason, doubt without logic, fears that seem exaggerated to the rational mind. And this is where most men lose everything. The hidden dynamic here is primal. A woman knows that beauty, comfort, and security are fragile shields against the brutality of life. She knows that within her exists a tempest of emotions that will sometimes spiral beyond her control. She knows that the world itself is merciless, and she seeks the answer to one burning question: can you stand steady when I cannot? This is not about fixing her feelings, not about offering solutions or dismissing the storm. It is about proving in the rawest chamber of intimacy that you do not shatter when she shatters. The common response is weakness disguised as care. The ordinary man panics at her tears or her chaos. He scrambles to rationalize her fears away, telling her she is overreacting, that it isn't a big deal. Or worse, he collapses into frustration, demanding she stop, accusing her of drama. He believes that if he can just silence her storm, he will restore order. But what she sees is a man who cannot carry the weight of her vulnerability. A man who buckles when confronted with the feminine abyss. And silently, often without words, her trust begins to die. The power response is entirely different. The sovereign man does not rush to erase the storm. He does not fear it, nor does he shrink from it. He remains steady, calm, and present. His embrace does not shake. His voice does not crack. He does not attempt to extinguish her emotions, but to contain them, to provide a vessel strong enough that her chaos can rage without destroying the bond. His strength is not loud, but unyielding. And in that unshakable presence, she discovers something deeper than attraction: safety. Not the safety of walls or wealth, but the safety of being able to unravel completely and still feel held by a man who does not break. The perception shift here is the deepest of all. You begin to understand that the ultimate hidden test is not about dominance in conversation or performance in public. It is about sovereignty in the most vulnerable space where nothing can be faked. When you pass this test, something irreversible occurs. She entrusts you with a part of herself that she guards from the world. Her loyalty hardens, her respect deepens, her desire fuses with reverence. And when you fail, the reverse is just as final. She may remain physically present, but the inner gates close. She no longer believes you are the rock upon which she can anchor her chaos. Now you see the progression clearly. First the silence, then the friction, then the public arena, and now the storm of intimacy. Each layer more dangerous, each revealing whether your center is real or counterfeit. But even here, there remains one final test, the most brutal of all, because it is not administered by her consciously, but by life itself. It is the test where she does not create the trial, but watches how you endure the one the world delivers. This is the stage where all masks are torn away and only truth remains. Are you prepared to confront it? The world always delivers its judgment. It does not care for your plans, your charm, or your carefully built image. It will strip you bare with betrayal, loss, failure, humiliation. And here, whether you realize it or not, she is watching. This is the final hidden test, the one not crafted by her hand, but revealed by your collision with reality. A man can fake confidence in words. He can hold stillness in silence. He can laugh off a jab in public. He can even contain her storm for a night. But when life itself drags him into the mud, when he is bruised, beaten, stripped of illusions, his true essence is exposed. And she is watching, always. The hidden dynamic is that women know instinctively what Machiavelli wrote plainly. Fortune is fickle. unpredictable, merciless. The prince who cannot adapt, who cannot endure catastrophe, loses his crown. Likewise, the man who collapses under failure loses more than his own dignity. He loses her faith. She may not articulate this consciously, but her body, her soul, her instincts are measuring one thing. Does he endure? Because if he does not, then she knows she cannot entrust herself, her future, her children, her lineage, to a man who drowns when fortune turns against him. The common response is collapse. The ordinary man, when struck by misfortune, wallows in self-pity. He seeks sympathy instead of strategy. He complains, withdraws, numbs himself with distraction, or worse, blames her for his downfall. In that moment, whatever sovereignty he once displayed is shattered. She sees it. And though she may console him, though she may even stay by his side for a time, her spirit retreats. She cannot follow a man who surrenders to despair, because despair corrodes desire. The power response is resurrection. The sovereign man bleeds, yes. He suffers, he aches, he stumbles. But he does not remain broken. He alchemizes pain into power. He allows failure to carve him sharper, betrayal to teach him cunning, loss to forge him into steel. He does not conceal the wound, but he does not drown in it either. He demonstrates to her, and to himself, that he is not defined by the blow he receives, but by the rise that follows. And in witnessing this, she sees the ultimate proof. Because if he can endure the wrath of life itself, then he can endure her storms, her silences, her contradictions, her tests. He has passed not just her examinations, but the universe's. The perception shift here is final. You realize that every hidden test she gives is a rehearsal for this, the world's crucible. She withdraws to see if you stand alone. She provokes friction to see if you remain firm. She teases you in public to see if you hold your dignity under scrutiny. She collapses in chaos to see if you provide safety. And finally, she watches how you face life when it burns everything you thought you were. Past this, and you are not just attractive, you are inevitable. Fail it, and no words, no charm, no apology can restore what has been lost. This is the truth Machiavelli would whisper if he stood among us today. Power is never spoken into existence. It is revealed in the furnace of trial. And women, consciously or not, are the guardians of this law. Their hidden tests are not cruelty, but prophecy. They are not meant to destroy you, but to strip away the weak, the fragile, the counterfeit. Only the man who welcomes these tests, who embraces them as the sacred fire through which sovereignty is born, can ever hope to ascend. And now, the final question remains. Will you continue to fear the hidden tests, resenting them, misunderstanding them, or will you recognize them as the very rituals that crown you? Because from this moment on, every silence, every friction, every storm, every collapse is no longer confusion. It is your chance to prove, again and again, that you are the man who does not break. The choice is yours. So now we arrive at the final distillation, the toolkit carved from fire, the arsenal forged in every silent battle, every storm endured, every crucible passed. What does it mean to live as a man who no longer fears the hidden tests? It means that silence no longer threatens you. You welcome it, because it is in silence that your presence speaks loudest. It means that friction no longer unsettles you. You recognize it as the field where conviction proves itself stronger than comfort. It means that public scrutiny no longer shakes you. You stand in the court of perception and radiate composure, converting laughter and challenge into fuel for your aura. It means that her chaos no longer overwhelms you. You do not rush to extinguish it. You contain it. You hold it. You transform it into deeper intimacy. And finally, it means that when life itself shatters you, when fortune strips you to the bone, you do not drown, you resurrect. And in your resurrection, she sees the inevitability of your sovereignty. The toolkit is not a set of tricks. It is an identity. Every hidden test is passed not by performance, but by embodiment. The weak man searches for techniques, lines, rehearsed answers. The sovereign man becomes the answer. He understands that women are not seeking entertainment, wealth, or even comfort at their core. They are seeking the presence of a man who does not break. Every test is calibrated to expose fracture. Every power response is born of one thing: the unshakable decision to remain whole, no matter what pressure is applied. That is the essence of sovereignty. So what must you do? First, slow down. Do not rush to fill silence. Do not rush to please. Do not rush to defend. Stillness is your ally. Second, hold your standards. Do not bend at the first sign of friction, because the bending of your will signals the collapse of your center. Third, laugh in the arena. Do not meet public challenge with fear. Meet it with lightness, humor, expansion. Fourth, embrace her chaos. Do not flee from her vulnerability. Hold it without breaking, and she will entrust you with more than desire. She will entrust you with her soul. And fifth, endure the blows of fortune. Fail, bleed, stumble, but rise again, sharper, harder, sovereign. If you embody these, you pass not only her hidden tests, but the world's eternal exam. And now comes the final forcer, the moment where the mirror is turned on you. From this day forward, you cannot claim ignorance. You cannot walk blindly through the trials women set before you, thinking they are accidents or quirks. You know now what they are. You know they are judgments of your essence, secret doors that open only to sovereignty. So when the silence arrives, when the friction sharpens, when the crowd watches, when her storm erupts, when life itself burns you to ashes, you will either collapse or you will rise. That choice is not hers. That choice is yours. And the question that remains is brutal, inescapable, and final. When the hidden test comes for you, when her gaze hardens, when her warmth withdraws, when her faith trembles, will you prove that you are a man who bends or a man who reigns?